Thomas didn't sleep after the phone call. He sat on the edge of the old couch that smelled like mothballs and damp wood, staring at the silent phone. Its cord dangled like a noose. He couldn't remember seeing it before. He'd sworn it wasn't there when he moved in. The base was yellowed with age, rotary dial stiff with grime, and dustless, as if recently touched. But what clung to his spine wasn't the phone. It was the voice. It hadn't sounded threatening. It had sounded mournful, familiar even, like a lullaby he'd forgotten he knew. The next morning, he asked the super if someone had called from an internal line. The old man just grunted, said none of the phones worked in the building anymore, and shuffled away. Thomas noticed the hallway wallpaper peeling like skin, revealing faint writing beneath. Not graffiti, not tags. Names. Dozens of them. First names, etched in pencil. So faint he might have missed them entirely if the light hadn't hit just right. He brushed one with his fingers. Camilla. The graphite smeared onto his skin like ash. Back in his apartment, the mirrors had fogged. All of them. He hadn't showered, hadn't boiled water, and none of the windows were open. Yet every reflective surface pulsed with condensation. When he wiped one clean, he saw a second face behind his own. Pale, hollow-eyed, lips stitched shut with black thread. He turned instantly, heart thundering, but the room was empty. Only the curtains moved, whispering secrets to a breeze that didn't exist. He didn't leave that day. Something told him it would be worse outside. Instead, he explored the apartment more carefully. He opened drawers, cabinets, closets. Inside the bedroom closet, behind a false panel, he found old photos. Dozens of them. Same hallway, same door, same apartment. Different people, smiling, waving, each labeled with dates and death certificates. One photograph stopped him. A woman holding a phone. She looked like she was screaming. The date was July 18th, 1989. Written on the back in black ink, the last one who answered. That night, the landline rang again at exactly 3:12 a.m. Thomas froze. He stared at it for a long time. It rang once, twice, a third time, then silence. He didn't answer, but he heard the whisper anyway. This time, not from the phone, from the wall behind it. Soft, slow. You never left. They just stopped seeing you. He ripped the phone from the wall. It didn't matter. The voice was in the floorboards now, in the mirror fog, in the pulse of the apartment itself. He clutched the photo. The woman's mouth looked like his now, open in terror, lips mid-scream. He turned it over. The back was no longer blank. It now read, "Welcome back, Thomas." He barely remembered falling asleep, but when he awoke, he was on the floor, cheek pressed against the cold parquet. The photograph was gone. The phone back on the wall, perfectly connected. No torn wires, no cracks. As if he had never touched it. As if it had grown back. He stood, dizzy, noticing now that the mirrors were bone dry, but warped, just slightly, curved inward like glass pulled toward something inside. His own reflection blinked a moment too late. It smiled when he didn't. Thomas stumbled to the door. He needed to leave. Whatever this place was, it didn't want him to remember. Or maybe it did, and that was worse. But the doorknob wouldn't turn. It wasn't locked. It was stuck. As if the wood of the door had fused to the frame. He kicked it, punched it, yelled. Nothing. Only the echo of his voice, repeating slightly offbeat, like someone repeating his words a breath too late, mocking him, mirroring him. He shouted through the peephole, banging and begging for help. But when he looked out, the hallway wasn't there. Only blackness, a kind of darkness that didn't feel like night, but like blindness. The buzzing fluorescent light from the corridor had vanished. And then he saw it, a face, pale, motionless, inches away, on the other side, watching him through the hole, lips stitched shut, and slowly, very slowly, smiling. Thomas fell backward. The phone rang again. He didn't want to pick up, but this time it was ringing from every room, from the walls, from behind the sink. He put his hands over his ears, but still heard it. Sharp, mechanical, insistent. When he picked up, the voice was different, not mournful, not familiar, laughing. Slow, sticky laughter like molasses seeping into his brain. "You broke the rules," it hissed. "You saw your name too soon." He dropped the receiver. It didn't stop. The cord stretched impossibly long, slithering across the floor like a vine wrapping around his feet, anchoring him. He screamed, grabbing scissors, cutting at the cord. Blood dripped. Not his. Not from him. The phone bled. When he finally freed himself, the apartment was darker than before. The lights flickered, then died. The only light came from beneath the bathroom door, cold, greenish, pulsing like a dying star. He crept toward it, step by step, his breath trembling. The door was slightly ajar. Inside, the tub was filled to the brim with black water. A rotary phone submerged beneath the surface rang, clear, bright. Each bubble that surfaced shaped like a scream. Thomas ran. He didn't care anymore. He hurled his shoulder into the door again and again until it gave way, not outward, but inward. The door disappeared like mist. He found himself standing in the same hallway he had seen in the photos. But now it was endless. Wall lamps flickered with dead flies inside them. Wallpaper peeled and fluttered, whispering like paper mouths. All the doors had numbers scratched out, replaced by names. He walked. He walked for hours, or minutes, or lifetimes, until he found it, his door. But instead of Thomas carved into the wall, it now read, "Answered." He didn't want to open it. But the hallway pulsed behind him, every shadow stretching toward him like reaching fingers. The ceiling above him groaned, and far off, a light exploded with a snap and the flutter of moths dying mid-flight. The walls were closing in, literally. The wallpaper twisted and curled, revealing more of the raw concrete underneath, and the whispers now had breath. Hot, foul breath. He stepped forward. The door opened before he touched it. Inside was not his apartment. It was the same layout, the same dimensions, but wrong. Everything was reversed, like a mirror image. But even the objects were distorted. Chairs with too many legs. A couch that breathed, inflating and deflating slightly, like something sleeping beneath the fabric. The television, cracked down the middle, flickered images that didn't exist. A nursery, a basement, a funeral. In the corner, the rotary phone rested on a table, gently spinning by itself. The dial was melting. On the far wall, a new photo frame hung. His photo. But now, his eyes were missing, scratched out from within the glass. His reflection in the cracked TV showed the same. Blank sockets, no blood, just hollow black. His knees gave out. He couldn't look away. The screen changed again. This time it showed a corridor with a man walking toward a door. His door. The man turned. It was Thomas. A knock, not from the screen, from the wall. Then another, louder, faster. The wallpaper bubbled outward with every thud, as if fists were pounding from the inside. The photo on the wall shook violently. The lights pulsed like veins about to burst. The phone rang. He answered. The voice was his own. "Why did you come back?" He couldn't respond. His throat was dry, filled with the taste of static and iron. The voice continued, pleading now. "You were free. You escaped, but you had to know what the photo meant." Thomas backed away, dropping the receiver, but the voice bled from the phone into the walls, crawling through the vents, echoing across every surface. He stumbled into the bedroom. The bed was gone. In its place, a hole, a perfect circular hole cut into the floor. The edges glistened like wet teeth. Something was down there, breathing. He felt himself drawn to it. Against his will, his legs moved. A cold wind rose from below, filled with voices. Every neighbor he'd ever ignored, every echo from childhood halls, every lost thought he'd tried to forget. His name was being whispered, over and over from hundreds of mouths, a lullaby in reverse. The last thing he saw before the blackness took him was the photo frame turning slowly toward the hole, his photo now smiling, his empty eyes gleaming like polished obsidian. He awoke in the hallway again, but this time, everything was drenched in red. Not paint, not blood. Just a suffocating hue, like the light of a dying sun leaking through a world already decayed. The wallpaper had burned away, exposing brick and bone, twisted together like the remnants of 1,000 apartments stacked atop one another, each one screaming through the walls. The doors were gone. All of them. Except his. Only now, it didn't bear a name. It bore a reflection. The wood shone like a mirror, and staring back at him wasn't himself, but the version from the photo, hollow-eyed, smiling, waiting. Thomas moved closer and the reflection mimicked him perfectly until he blinked. The image didn't. It stood there, still as glass, then slowly raised a hand and beckoned. He ran, down the corridor that should have had no end, but this time it was shrinking, collapsing, lights bursting above him like bullets. The floor curled upward, photographs peeled off the ceiling, fluttering down like ash. Every photo was of him. Different years, different places, all moments he didn't remember posing for, all with one thing in common: he was always alone. Except in the last one. In that one, someone stood behind him, a figure in the shadows, mouth sewn shut, and smiling. Thomas screamed. His voice didn't echo. Instead, the sound cracked the walls like a whip. Through the rupture came fingers, long, jointless, stained with old ink and ash, grabbing at him. They didn't pull, they wrote, scratching words into his skin, carving memories he never lived. You left us. You forgot. Now you returned. He collapsed to the floor, shaking, bleeding phrases that didn't belong to him. The hallway twisted sideways. Gravity no longer mattered. He crawled toward the only door still standing, his mirror door, the one without a knob. It opened before he reached it. Inside was the apartment again, but filled with people. Silent, motionless, faces covered with burlap sacks. Dozens of them seated at the dining table, heads tilted, listening. At the head of the table sat the telephone, ringing, a plate of blackened tongues before it, arranged like silverware. The guests turned their heads in unison toward Thomas, and behind the sacks, the sound of stitched mouths cracking open. He stepped inside, not because he wanted to, but because there was nowhere else to go. There was a chair, pulled out just enough, like it had been expecting him. As he lowered himself into it, the sound of his weight settling was answered by dozens of heads nodding once, like a silent ceremony had begun. The ringing phone stopped. In its place, a low hum filled the room, vibrating the walls. A voice, impossibly deep and slow, began speaking through the vent above the stove. It wasn't English. It wasn't any language Thomas knew, but his body understood. Each syllable pulsed through his spine, igniting memories he didn't own, faces he'd never seen, pain he hadn't earned. The guests tilted their heads again. A hand from the end of the table, long and robed in something darker than shadow, reached forward and placed a folded note in front of him. The hand withdrew. No arm, no body, just the hand. He opened the note. It was blank, until he blinked. Then words appeared in thick red strokes, as if written with bone, dipped in something warm. It read, "Remember or become." The guests rose, their burlap masks fell. One by one, each face underneath was his, Thomas. Old, young, mutilated, innocent, screaming, smiling, hollow-eyed, dozens of versions of himself. One walked forward. The smile on its face was the same one from the TV. From the photo. From the mirror door. "Pick one," it said. He couldn't speak. "Pick who you were, or we'll choose who you become." Behind him, the wall creaked open like ribs parting. A corridor stretched beyond it, lined with mirrors. Each mirror contained one of his selves. Each mirror whispered his name in different tones. He walked toward them, dragging feet that felt like they belonged to someone else. He passed by his childhood, his teenage years, his regrets, his cruelties, his cowardice, his secrets. He stopped at the last mirror. There was no reflection, only darkness. He stepped into it. They say the building is condemned now, closed off by rusted gates and warning signs no one dares to read. But sometimes when the night is humid and the city forgets to breathe, you can still see the elevator lights flickering, going up and down, stopping on floors that no longer exist. No one lives there anymore. At least, no one who should. Neighbors whisper about a figure in the stairwell standing still for hours, watching nothing until it watches you. They hear doors open when everyone is asleep. And sometimes, people on the street below claim they see faces in the windows. Not one. Many, pressed against the glass, all mouthing the same word over and over. But no one's ever close enough to hear what it is. So if your building creaks when there's no wind, or if your lights dim at 3:13 a.m., don't check the hallway. Don't press the elevator button. And whatever you do, never take the stairs alone. Some places were never meant to be built. Some echoes were never meant to fade. And some stories, like this one, don't end. They just wait for someone, like you, to reopen the door.